Why did you want to bring up Chuck Schumer at this point? And
Well, he is
what's
still,
important there?
Chuck Schumer is still the most senior elected Democrat in the country.
Yeah.
He's the head of the uh, Democrats in the Senate, which makes him the most senior elected Democrat currently. And, um, I think we spoke last week, Nora, or well, we've spoken about it many times about sort of the disgusting gloating from some quarters saying, oh, well, if you just voted for Kamala
Right.
Harris and
Right.
the Democrats, things would be different. Well, they weren't different. What we're going back to now is Joe Bidenism. It's
Yeah.
Donald Trump adopting the policy of Joe Biden of trying to massacre Palestinians into submission. But here comes Chuck Schumer, Senator Chuck Schumer, to uh, to disabuse anyone who has illusions that the Democrats would be any better of those illusions. And he has a new book out, which is called Antisemitism in America. And
I think the
he's
subtitle
doing
is A Warning or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we'll get into some of what he's warning about in a second.
Ridiculous.
But he has been doing the rounds of the TV studios to promote his book. And he was on The View on ABC on Tuesday. And let's take a look at the um, clip of that.
Really never that bad until 2017. And in 20, I mean, until October 7th last year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
When the Jews were attacked
when the
by
Jews were
Hamas.
attacked by Hamas initially, and the brutal, the women raped, and the little babies' heads chopped off, and all of that brutally, and all of a sudden, anti-Semitism developed.
What?
Can we play it again?
No.
It was really never that bad until 2017. And in 20, I mean, until
God.
October 7th last year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
When the Jews were attacked
when the
by
Jews
Hamas.
were attacked by Hamas initially, and the brutal, the women raped, and the little babies' heads chopped off, and all of that brutally,
My God.
and all
So
of a sudden, anti-Semitism developed.
So here we are in March of 2025, and Chuck Schumer is still spreading the atrocity propaganda and lies of beheaded babies. There were no beheaded babies on October 7th. Only one baby, Israeli baby, was killed on October 7th, and that's one too many. I don't care whether a child is Israeli or Palestinian or any other nationality. The death of a child is always horrific and always something to deplore. That baby, Mila Cohen, died from a bullet that was fired through a door. It was a stray bullet. Still a horrible, horrible tragedy. But there were no beheaded babies. And Chuck Schumer is still spreading this atrocity propaganda on the day that Israel killed 174 children at least in Gaza. And there were no rapes. To this day, there are still not a single credible claim of a rape on October 7th, not a single identified victim. And this is effectively the leader of the Democratic Party spreading this atrocity propaganda. I actually took a look at his book because I wanted to see what was in the book that he's hawking around TV studios. And you can see from I tweeted some of these excerpts from the book, but in the book he doesn't mention beheaded babies, but he does mention he does claim uh, one disgusting thing is he claims that the reason that there are so many Palestinians killed in Gaza is that quote I'm not doing these in the same order as you, Tamara. I'm sorry. It's okay, but here we go. Yeah, this one. No, the previous one, the one you had before. Yeah. So he claims that the reason there are so many civilians being killed is that he says the blame falls on Hamas for using the civilian population as human shields. This is how he's justifying genocide. And if,
Deplorable.
yeah, deplorable. And if we go to the next one, you can see that he does repeat the atrocity propaganda about rape and then uses that to attack pro-Palestinian, well, anti-genocide protesters who he accuses of celebrating rapes and murders. So that's how he tries to delegitimize protest against Joe Biden's at that time's policies of supporting this massacre. And again, and then he also, in the previous one, if you go back to the previous one, he also says that he's alarmed by the stridency of the messaging about Israel committing in America, enabling what they consider genocide, and basically accusing people who accurately describe what's going on in Gaza as genocide, accusing them of anti-Semitism. So
I mean, this book, right? Like, who's going to read it, first of all? Who is it marketed towards?
Well, it's
and-
marketed to the viewers of The View, and
Right.
he was on MSNBC
Right.
with Chris Hayes marketing
Right.
this book, who's supposed to be a progressive, Chris
Right.
Hayes, and he's giving a platform to this kind of atrocity propaganda and this pandering to this lie that anti-Semitism is rife in America. It isn't. There's a lot of, that's not to say it's non-existent, but just like in Europe, the real anti-Semitism, the dangerous anti-Semitism that should really frighten us is on the right, is in the government, is coming from the right-wing parties that are on the march in Europe. It's not coming from the people going to the streets to oppose the horrific genocide that's being backed by these governments. It's coming from Elon Musk, who's giving literal Nazi salutes at rallies. So that's just to put in perspective how this charge of anti-Semitism is weaponized against people protesting genocide. It's weaponized against Mahmoud Khalil and against all the other people who are being rounded up and imprisoned or deported. And the Democratic Party, including its top leaders, are utterly explicit. And I posted, I didn't prepare this, Tamara, I'm sorry, but there was a statement that Kamala Harris gave in July of 2024 after protests against the genocide. If I put that statement up without telling you who made it, you wouldn't be able to tell if that was Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. So vitriolic is she, so condemnatory of people protesting against genocide and calling them pro-Hamas. Language that's indistinguishable from the language that the administration is using right now to jail and deport people. So it's important to keep that stuff in mind. Thank you, Tamara. You're always incredible at finding that. Look at this here. She says, and this was July 25th, 2024, and she says, I support the right to peacefully protest, but let's be clear, anti-Semitism, hate, and violence of any kind have no place in our nation. What anti-Semitic acts does she even name in this? She claims, I condemn the individuals associating with the brutal terrorist organization Hamas, which has vowed to annihilate the state of Israel and kill Jews. Pro-Hamas graffiti and rhetoric is abhorrent, and we must not tolerate it in our nation. So this sort of blanket statement, where, you could find, I mean, perhaps in a country of 350 million people, you could find people going to protest, perhaps they're provocateurs. You could find one or two people saying outrageous things, saying things that are wrong. And you will find immediately that the people in the movement, the other protesters, will be the first to call them out and to say, no, that's not what we stand for. But you never saw Kamala Harris or Chuck Schumer saying, we stand with the vast majority of these protesters who are against genocide. They never did that. They only ever focused on the extreme outliers they could find to smear the whole movement, or they smeared the whole movement. And the reason for that is because they can't stand against the genocide because they're the ones who did the genocide.
Yeah. I want to make the point quickly that what we've said it before, I'm sure we'll say it again. What Chuck Schumer said in his book and on The View about Palestinians supposedly raping Israelis on October the 7th is a complete and utter lie. And as we've documented extensively at the Electronic Intifada on this live stream and in articles, not only is there no evidence that any rapes of Israelis took place on October the 7th, there's no evidence, but there's also no allegations. There are no concrete allegations of specific named or anonymous victims of Palestinians raping Israelis taking place on October the 7th. It didn't happen. It's a complete lie. It's a complete fabrication.
And there is a new UN report detailing Israeli sexual violence against Palestinians that, because of everything that's been happening, I haven't had a chance to read it fully yet. I don't want to really comment on it before I've had a chance to read it fully, but that's something that's on our radar, and I want to come back to once I've had a chance to carefully read it.
And of course, Chuck Schumer won't give that report the time of day.
Well, he has his own facts.
It's right.
He doesn't need actual facts. He can make up his own.